we are really pushing forward, and again, fortunately haven't seen much disruption in our business. And at the same time, we have added a few things into the mix. So my business partner, Jake, dropped a special little episode addressing what's going on, talking about the fact that for his show, Disgraceland, True Crime and Music, he felt a little strange telling stories about rock and rollers behaving badly, given what's going on in the world, but that he was doing a few things he wanted to share with his audience, from donating to helping shout out any nonprofits or causes that they wanted some help spreading the word on. And at the end of the day, to just continuing to create the entertaining content that is his.
This is CrisisCast 2020 with me, Toby Goodman, a podcast where I get timely wisdom from experts in life and business. These guests will answer my 5 questions, sharing wisdom and insights to help you and me get through this global shitstorm. Today on CrisisCast 2020, perhaps the brightest spark I'm lucky to know, Brady Sadler, an author, partner and executive producer at the hugely trendy podcast media company Double Elvis, the team responsible for producing hit podcasts including Disgraceland, Dear Young Rocker, Citizen, Critic and 27 Club. Just a few weeks back, because of Brady, I witnessed in real time what happens when Hollywood gets really interested in great podcasts. Brady gives us the lowdown on life in Boston right now and how the pandemic has changed his workflow. I give you the collaboration king and my Mr. Zeitgeist, Brady Sadler. Before we start the show, I have something for you if you identify as pod curious. It's perfect for you if you're an expert, consultant or business owner. Maybe you're wondering if podcasting is worth the effort, especially now, or perhaps you've tried podcasting in the past but have been disappointed with the results. In this free guide, Podstar, I'll share the exact 7 steps we use to help publish over 2,000 podcasts each month. To get instant access, go to podcastnetworksolutions.com. Brady Sadler, welcome to CrisisCast 2020.
Thank you. Great to be here.
It seems like only yesterday we were not socially isolating and hanging out together. And now you're in Boston, I'm in London, and the world's turned upside down.
It has.
Tell me so far, what's your experience been pretty much, I guess, since the end of podcast movement, which was mid-Feb? It was just kind of on our radar, but we weren't really taking it at all seriously and we were hanging out. So what's been your experience since you got back to Boston?
It started out for a few weeks, as you said, sort of continuing as life was going, and then went to New York for another podcast conference and had a great weekend, spent some time with some family. And then that Tuesday, I think, is when the NBA shut down and the domino effect started. It became clear that we were heading into uncharted territories on so many levels. And I actually got sick that same week and got an email from the conference that said that someone at the conference had tested positive for COVID-19. And it was a nerve-wracking couple days. I didn't have, everybody who feels a slightest cold when something like this is going on begins to wonder. And so it was definitely anxiety-inducing. I didn't think that I had all of the symptoms, but then again, the symptoms are a bit uncertain and elusive. So fortunately, I got through that and was able to maintain continue to maintain most of the work that I was doing, because my company, Double Elvis, is a podcast company, and most of our shows are already created by folks who have their own studios and remote setups, and we're a remote distributed virtual team. So very grateful for that. And beyond just hunkering down, trying to be productive, have had a few fun interviews and conversations like this, which have brought some much needed light into what's an otherwise kind of dark time, and have made some time each day to try and get outside a little bit. We live in Boston, as you said, near a park, and they haven't shut down that park, and we're absolutely not going out and, frolicking around, but we have a dog, and it gives us a good excuse to go through the park and get some fresh air. So even though we're in the city, we get a little bit of nature in. That's kind of been what I've been doing, trying to carve out a little bit of time for creative writing as well. And then just trying to stay connected to friends and family. So definitely calling or FaceTiming my parents more than usual as they're home alone together, and just Netflix and chilling more than usual for there, but feeling lots of emotions. And, I think like everybody, just the mix of uncertainty and sadness about what is happening, and the plight of so many people, and the unknowns that we're all facing are definitely there, but trying to be optimistic and productive at the same time.
Yeah, a very good and wide-ranging answer. Thanks, man. That's very cool, and I'm glad that you can still get out. Am I right in thinking you've got an apartment?
Yes.
So you don't have a garden. We're feeling super grateful that we've got, albeit a small one, a garden, because the parks are closed and the kids and stuff are kind of going out their mind. So every time it's a little bit sunny at the moment, we're like just happy because our house basically doubles in size. And I imagine the same challenges with dogs if you've got restrictions to outside life. As far as the work goes, you've got Double Elvis. It's just kind of really ramping up. I felt like I was in the presence of a rock and roll band when I was with you a month or so ago, just because you were, having really exciting meetings about the podcasts and talking TV and all of that stuff. So what's kind of happened there? Is stuff slowed down? Did you get in under the wire with stuff? Like, feel free to be as open or as closed about any of these answers, and it will be edited out. So
we are really pushing forward, and again, fortunately haven't seen much disruption in our business. And at the same time, we have added a few things into the mix. So my business partner, Jake, dropped a special little episode addressing what's going on, talking about the fact that for his show, Disgraceland, True Crime and Music, he felt a little strange telling stories about rock and rollers behaving badly, given what's going on in the world, but that he was doing a few things he wanted to share with his audience, from donating to helping shout out any nonprofits or causes that they wanted some help spreading the word on. And at the end of the day, to just continuing to create the entertaining content that is his main focus, as a way, hopefully, to give people a little bit of healthy distraction. And I think that he's really done a great job with that. And he kind of doubled down this week with all of the chatter around the Tiger King, and Joe Exotic decided to make a special episode in 3 days about that show for his podcast Disgraceland, and that launched this week, and it's gaining a lot of chatter, and people are loving it. So I think again, trying to be aware of what's going on, and not pretend everything is status quo, but also doing what you do best in a way that hopefully is helpful. And that's what we're trying to do. And then behind the scenes, just getting ready for the next shows that we have, and hopefully a time when people can gather in person again. Jake did a bunch of live events in the past. We'd like to do some more of that kind of thing in the future, but it's not a big part of our business model. I will say we have one show that is a travel show in many ways. And for that, we don't necessarily need to physically do a lot of travel for the production, but the show is meant to inspire travel. And obviously we can't do that right now. And so it feels a little bit off for the time. So we are delaying that launch a little bit, and we're unsure about exactly how the tone of that will need to be, because it'll depend on this summer when the show will launch one way or another, whether there's more widespread travel, or whether we're still being very, very cautious and not traveling a lot, in which case I think a show like that will be equally, if not even more valuable as an escape, as a virtual way to get out of your house and to take your mind to a different place. So just trying to make those type of small adjustments. But at the end of the day, I mean, we make entertaining content, and that's how we serve people. So the more of that we can do, hopefully we can be helpful. And then again, if we can use our platform to spread the word about good causes and to connect our community, we definitely want to do that too.
Amen. It's great that you've got an audience. Disgraceland's massive. You've also got Dear Young Rocker, 27 Club, and Citizen Critic. They're the only ones that are live right now, right?
Right.
And I think my feeling around that as someone who's a creative type is that that's exactly the right way to go. It's the right way to go for someone like Jake, who is a pretty influential guy these days in podcasting, to say, I'm aware of this, but I'm going to continue doing what I do. And I think just saying I'm aware of it is enough. It feels like people are going, okay, well, you haven't just ignored it and carried on making your show. So I think that's a smart move. And then moving over to continuing as business as usual is the right thing to do, especially when we're all thanking our lucky stars that there are such things as entertaining podcasts and Netflix and stuff like that to listen to, because the least healthy thing to do is to press refresh on whatever your chosen news app is, right? So I can see, and I can already see from the stats that we've got, that the entertainment-based shows are holding strong and growing. Some other stars of show aren't. Of course, sports is a classic one that's taking a kicking, because there's no news to report because it's not happening. But yeah, that's really good. And from a kind of human standpoint, I'll combine these two questions because they seem to always be answered in the same way. What's your feeling about how we're going to get through and what the other side looks like after we've hit the peak, if you like, and we're on the way back? What do you think humans are going to do to navigate this, other than listen to all the Double Elvis podcasts?
It's a good question. I think that's what everybody's trying to figure out, everybody in business and everybody just in their normal everyday lives. It certainly puts things in perspective a bit. So I hope that there'll be some carryover for myself in just appreciating, as cliche or sort of cheesy as that might sound, it's a wake up call for appreciating the ability to just go hang at a pub with you and catch up in person, or, just drive to see my parents. And I think that kind of awareness and appreciation for small things will probably carry over. But at the same time, I think, we're habit forming beings, and hopefully we get a handle on the virus and there's a vaccine sooner than later. And within a year, most of life is back to normal. And we can kind of carry on. I hope that there are not any, serious long-term effects. I think, we don't need to get into politics, but, I hope we take care of people, and I hope that there's some change, but I just don't, I have a friend who was saying, oh, this is going to be this massive societal shift and everything's going to change. And we're finally going to right size the way that, all these very specific views that this might impact. And said, I just don't see that. I think there'll be a couple of things that we might change, but I don't necessarily see that happening. And I wonder more about. I'm an optimist, so I think in a year we're going to be out of the woods. I hope that there's not too much human suffering, to put it bluntly, to get there. And I hope that people are able to bounce back in their jobs and the economies bounce back. And I wonder about that midterm. It's really like this summer, I think we're all resigned to the fact that another month or two, we're probably going to be living like this, but are we doing it for 3 or 4 months? Is it really like this for that much longer? I don't know. And that's the big question mark. What do you think?
Oh, thanks for asking. I feel the same way. The conversations that I'm having, I'm just interviewing so many people in such a short space of time. And as I said to you before we started, I'm really a rookie at interviewing, but I'm discovering these themes. And one of the themes that's coming through is people are not really interested in talking about politics. Like, everyone's got their own politics. They've all got their opinions about the leaders who are in the boss chair in whatever country they may be in. And obviously I'm talking with people here in the US, in Israel, in Bulgaria, like some really interesting people. And obviously their take on what's going on through the news channels and through the leadership and whoever's in government is slightly different. But what I'm seeing is the theme is like, they'll do what they do, but it's time for the leaders to lead in their own way. And we're seeing the decent CEOs making choices ahead of government legislation and ahead of government rules. We're seeing people just take steps to lead. And I'm talking to you on a day where the Prime Minister of the UK is in intensive care in a hospital. Like, he's stepped down, and he's the most kind of what's the word? Ambitious, strong-willed kind of character that you could wish to come across. And again, not getting into his politics, this is a guy who is clearly a force to be reckoned with, whether you like what he's doing or not. And I'm certainly split on a number of issues, but he's now in the hands of the intensive care people, right? And so it's leveled a ton of people. It obviously got to Justin Trudeau in Canada as well, in a small way. And so we're seeing other people who aren't necessarily in government stepping up and leading and making decisions. Many of them kind of admirable and good ones, right? For the safety of their employees and for their customers. So yes, I think it's okay. I think there's going to be stuff that changes forever. And I think, in other ways, we'll be back to normal. I suppose my personal question, as I'm talking to you and looking at you, is like, am I going to be seeing you in Texas in August, or is that going to be a little bit too soon? Like, that's kind of my next big trip was August, and I don't know if it still will be, but there's nothing we can do about it, right?
Right.
So yeah, that's what I'm learning. So if people are only listening to one episode and it's you because they know you and stuff, that's what I'm learning. In terms of, I think we kind of covered the fact that you guys were all pretty remote and creative and you're still working in your own spaces. So nothing's really changed. And you, unlike a lot of people I speak with, you're not coaching people at the moment. You've got your own projects. In terms of personally kind of getting through, you spoke about creative writing and maybe watching more Netflix than you might do. Is there anything else, or can you expand on what that looks like, what you're enjoying, maybe what you intend to read or watch or listen to that you haven't had the chance to do, and now you've got a bit more time? So what does that look like personally for you?
Yeah, the creative writing is a podcast concept that I came up with the idea for about 6 weeks ago, and had intended to start writing maybe this summer. And so I just pushed that up and have carved out a little bit of time to do that. And it's a fictional series that's meant to be set in 2025. And I've never written anything like that. I've written a nonfiction book about marketing, and I've written concepts for other shows, but this one's a little bit of a stretch, and that feels good. So trying to carve out regular time for that and just keep progressing. When you start writing something new, and I think almost everybody shares that feeling that it's not any good at the beginning. And Brene Brown calls it the SFD, the shitty first draft. And so getting that down is the number one goal and the main creative project. And then my parents are the ones who are watching a lot of Netflix. I'm watching a little bit, and I'm enjoying some more documentaries. I watched the Clive Davis documentary. You and I share a love of music. And so that's a really good one. seeing how he navigated his career, the amazing artists that he worked with. I really enjoyed that documentary. And then we watched the Dave Chappelle Kennedy Center special, which was a unique format. The Kennedy Center was honoring Dave Chappelle with their Mark Twain Award, which is their comedic prize. And they used it as a way to tell his career story. And so they spliced together the speeches and people honoring him that night with stories about him coming up, old clips of his comedy, and then him the night before the honors in a very small club in DC where he got his start. So it was really just cool to hear the story, really inspirational and really funny. So that kind of stuff, I think we're starting, as this drags out, we're starting to veer towards more uplifting content. And some of the stuff I caught my wife saying the other day, like, I'm gonna stop watching X because it's just a little too sad and dark, and we need all the light we can get right now.
I'm definitely experiencing that on the sofa with my wife after bedtime. We're perhaps choosing lighter things. Don't want to watch anything with too much murder or death in right now. And yeah,
and then every once in a while I'm doing, I'm checking out these live streams from artists that I really like. The DJ D Nice live sets have been really cool. My friend Will Daly, who's actually going to be hosting that travel show that I was talking about for Double Elvis, is doing this isolation tour where Will he plays shows from his shower at his home and live streams them to raise money on each night for a different venue. And the money goes to the non-salary venue staff who really makes live shows happen. And since he can't be in those actual clubs and those people don't have any means of making money right now, he's doing that to raise money for them. So those kind of things are really enjoyable and inspiring. So I've been taking in a few of those as well.
Very, very cool. Yeah, that was kind of where I was going. Going back to what you're saying about your writing and the shitty first draft thing, which we've all been there. I literally cannot remember who told me this, but there was either I read it or I heard it. But when you listen to something that you love, like perhaps or watch something you love, like the Dave Chappelle thing or whatever, remember what you're listening to by the time it's come out is someone's last effort. You're not listening to someone's first effort. So that's like the other version, a less eloquent version of the way Brené Brown distilled it. But yeah, definitely important to push through. It's so valuable, that first draft, because it's just full of it's got the core idea in there somewhere, and then it's almost like you're pruning it, right, rather than adding most of the time.
Absolutely. And it speaks to a bigger theme where, if there's anything that I can relay to people listening that I've found helpful, this is a bit from Mark Silverman, who I know you've had on this podcast, as well as another friend of mine, Jay Acunzo, who has his own media company and platform, Unthinkable, and Marketing Showrunners. But they both kind of led me down this path to just being okay with not being superhuman from a productivity standpoint right now, and just picking one thing, because it's really easy to get caught up in the idea that we have all this time. In reality, a lot of people have less time because they're juggling things without the structure that they built up for so long. And I'm sure with kids, you would agree with that. And so don't get caught up in the idea that you should be coming out of this. I think Mark said, with like in the best shape you've ever been in, plus that new company started, plus that book you always meant to write, and caught up on all your Netflix series. Like, that's just going to set you up for failure. Pick one thing that you want to do and make some time to squeeze it in.
Yeah, no, I've made absolutely no bones about the fact that I had a load of amazing stuff right there, and I've had to shelve it because it's the right thing to do. Like, we've had to shelve stuff, partnership stuff that we were doing, and yet I have to do something, and that's why I'm doing this. Like, I have to still, in an ethical way, communicate with people, establish relationships with people, further establish relationships with people I already know, including staying in touch with people like you, and if that's all I can do, then at least I've done something, and it's serving as a document, as far as I'm concerned. If anything else, if my kid asked me in 10 years time, when he's 16, what was that thing that happened when I was 6 all about? Well, we couldn't leave the house, I'll be like, I'll explain, and I'll say, listen to these podcasts that I made, because this is how I coped. If that's all it is that this whole thing does, I'm okay with it, man.
I love that. And I want to recognize you for always being a great connector in the most positive sense, and being there for your friends and colleagues. And this is just another way to do that. It's really enjoyable, and I'm excited to hear the rest of the episodes.
Thanks, man. I learn a lot from you. Author of Collaboration is King, of course. Thanks, man. And so let's leave it with this. So we've spoken about some stuff you're enjoying with Will Daly and Dave Chappelle and Clive Davis. Anything local to Boston? Anything that you're seeing that's further impressing you, surprising you, inspiring you? Like, could be anything. Like, I'm just wondering what you're seeing around, because people are really experiencing this on a hyper local level, right?
Yeah. I'm seeing, local creators just step up and do what you're doing from a connection standpoint, hosting live streams, both really structured, like classes that people are offering online, to just informal virtual hang sessions that people can just join and ask questions and eavesdrop on, to a local restaurateur, Jamie Bissonette, who I've gotten to know a little bit, love his restaurants and food, and is a celebrated international chef, one top chef. But he's, like you said, it kind of levels everybody. He's here in Boston. He can't go travel to his restaurants in the Middle East or in New York. He's got to be here in Boston, like everybody who's stuck close to their home. And so he's making the best of it. And they're packaging up food for healthcare workers. So there's just really beautiful stuff to find all around if you look a little bit for it, and if you temper your media diet. I'll admit I'm addicted to checking out some of the news updates every day and get sucked into that a bit. But I'm also really mindful that that's happening, and I'm limiting it. So I think checking your own media diet is great. And when I check it here in Boston, I do look around and I'm proud of our city and all the creators in every field that I see doing really cool stuff. It makes me want to think about other ways I can do more, and helps appropriately look at the bright spots in what's otherwise a terrible situation,
Yeah, man. Well, amen to that. And thank you for your time. We will link, of course, to Double Elvis. We will link to bradysadler.com. Is that still live as well? With your incredible book, the incredible shows you're making, which people should listen to and enjoy and escape from too much what's happening right now, anxiety media, and enjoy those, because they're incredible pieces of art. And proud to know you, man. And thanks for your time, and I will speak to you soon.
Likewise. Thanks, Toby.
Cheers, man. This episode of CrisisCast 2020 was produced by me in London and Kate Astrakhan in Michigan, with artwork by Ryan Field and sound design by Lee Turner. CrisisCast 2020 is a production from Podcast Network Solutions, a full-service podcast production company who are ready to help you plan, record, produce, and promote your message with podcasting. To find out more and grab your copy of Podstar if you're feeling pod curious, visit us at podcastnetworksolutions.com. critic.com.